in the first place seed, qualifying to the Contenders Cup by being the first on the Southeast Asia Oceania leaderboards with 52 points, hailing from Singapore. It's Life. How long have you been playing Shadowverse?
I've been competing in Shadowverse since 2021, but I've actually started playing the game in 2016, so I've been at it for a pretty long time.
All right, so what's your favorite Shadowverse class to play?
My favorite Shadowverse class to play has to be Forestcraft, probably followed by Portalcraft and then Shadowcraft. And the reason why I like these classes is because I feel that it gives the players a lot of room to make creative plays. This doesn't mean that I don't touch any of the other classes. If I feel that other classes are fun to play or they fit the metagame, I'm also very open to playing them as well.
How would you describe your playstyle in just 3 words?
I would say my playstyle is adaptive, methodical, and versatile.
How do you approach a Shadowverse meta? Do you just play right away the strongest decks, or do you try and analyze it and then devise a counter? Like when you first come into a Shadowverse meta, what's your approach on how to tackle that?
At the end of the day, I think the most important thing in Shadowverse is to have fun. So when the meta is just starting to develop, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for you to play decks that you might not have the opportunity to touch later, because those decks are less competitive. So when the meta is just developing, the first thing that I like to do is to play so-called bad decks, because I try to be as creative as possible and get that out of the way while I can, because when the meta is fully developed, I wouldn't be able to play them later. And as the meta develops, that's when I try to see certain trends developing in tournaments or in ladder, and I try to practice those decks that other people deem as very competitive. However, I also like to poke holes and see whether there are weaknesses that I can exploit in those meta decks and try to figure out any off-meta decks that are maybe optimal or viable in the current metagame.
So in regards to SVO, what are the benefits of being part of a team?
Right, so when I started playing Shadowverse, I never had the intention of playing competitive, so I didn't really see the point of joining a team, and I never did so for the majority of playing Shadowverse. However, when I started playing Shadowverse competitively, that was when I felt the need to be a little bit more efficient in practicing and learning the metagame. And that's where I think teams really shine. However, I did not decide to join a Western team. Instead, I joined, my first exposure would be what you'd call a window or Mado in Japanese. And I joined the RK Mado. And this was a Mado with a lot of notable players who have done really well in Rage or various different Japanese tournaments. And that was when I realized the full potential that teams could, or Mados could bring to the table. I think that when you're playing Shadowverse alone, it's very easy to have yourself as an echo chamber. So you try to convince yourself that your own opinions are right. However, when you have other people giving their own opinions, you can really just cross-reference and decide for yourself whether you should take that advice or stick true to your own opinion. So it's always good to have a second opinion to really get not just a myopic view of the metagame, but a fuller picture. And the team that I'm currently in is RIV. I view the team more as a social aspect to Shadowverse, because I think that the biggest appeal of Shadowverse is that it's a social game. I think card games are social games. It's always more fun to interact and play with different people. So I think that teams also bring that social aspect that I think is very necessary in card games.
In terms of your own performance in SVO, do you have a favorite moment from the previous SVO Cups that you participated in, or your favorite play, like your best play throughout the tournaments that you played in this year?
The interesting thing is, when I'm playing competitive Shadowverse, I don't really remember my good plays. Instead, whenever I slip and I mess up, those misplays stick with me forever. But if I had to pick a game that's memorable for me this year, I'd have to pick the game against SEAO in the semi-finals of the April Cup. I was very lucky to win the Vengeance Mirror against SEAO because despite going second, I was able to mitigate my life loss in the early game. I managed to draw 2 copies of Angel's Blessing, which effectively meant that I started the game with 24 HP instead of 20. Not only that, in the final turn, SEAO actually managed to heal up and get out of lethal range, but I was extremely fortunate to top deck lethal. So that was the most memorable game for me this year.
Do you have any advice for new players who are picking up Shadowverse, particularly if they're looking to get into competitive?
If I had to give one piece of advice to new Shadowverse players picking up competitive, it would have to be to take your time, play the game a little bit slower, and consider all your options. Even though it's sort of a stigma to rope your turns, don't be bothered by that and just take your time in tournaments, plan out your turns, figure out the best plays, and just execute.
Perfect. Finally, do you have any shout outs you want to give? Like people who supported you? Anyone you want to particularly mention?
I'd like to give a shout out to everyone in RIV, to the team leader Ray in particular, and everyone else who's helped me in one way or another. I'd also like to shout out everyone who was part of RK, everyone in the kindergarten motto, everyone in WMTD, and it stands for We Make Tier Decks. This is a Korean Shadowverse community. Everyone in the Shadowverse Discord, everyone that I've played against. I'd like to shout out the organizers and developers of the matchmaking site Ratings. I'd also like to shout out the tournament organizers all across the globe, the tournament organizers in Japan who hold the Rage tournaments and hold the Pro Tour. They've always been a big help in letting me learn how to optimally play decks.
Appreciate you coming out. Yeah, good luck, and yeah, I'll see you in Contenders, man.
Thank you
Can't
very
wait.
much.